Texting. Welcome back, America. It is a Wet My Whistle Weed Wednesday here in a sweltering sack. The highly questionable Naja Miliaccio flying solo tonight here. This is IDD for those of you who I don't disagree. The redoubtable one has to get his sleep schedule in order. He can't handle getting up early to get his daughter to the bus. Been doing it for a week and a half. Still doesn't have the discipline yet. Hopefully one day that young buck will grow up and figure it out. But anyway, wish the redoubtable one well, and we'll see him back hopefully very soon. This is a show I'm doing tonight solo because we're leaving for the weekend, going down to see the moms down in Myrtle Beach for Labor Day. So I will return Monday night with a post-fantasy football draft show, as we would be then just 3 days away from the opener, which will be Kansas City, Baltimore. That should be a heck of a treat, opening night when they drop Kansas City's fourth World Championship banner as they open their title defense, trying to be the first team ever to win 3 Super Bowls since the invention of the Super Bowl. The last team to get close was the 03-04 Patriots, who got to the second round in 05. That was the year Teddy Bruschi, Village Graw suffered with the stroke, and they were taken out in the second round. I believe it was at Denver. But anyway, Kansas City embarks on a historic quest, and we'll obviously be following them all the way through to see if they can do it. Obviously, this is a New York-Boston-based show. We'll be focusing on Boston sports tonight, as there's no New York to be found. So we're going to start with the cuts have been made. Those of you diehard Patriots fans out there saw, or probably by now have heard about Gerard Mayo's press conference today, where he said he would meet with the team tomorrow and discuss who the starting quarterback is going to be. So he's going to tell them first, and then he'll have a press conference tomorrow, sometime in the afternoon or evening, and let the rest of the world know who's going to be the day one starter against the Cincinnati Bengals. Up until about a week ago, I would say the odds would have been probably 80-20 in favor of Jacoby Brissett. Given what happened against, and again, I don't understand this, but then again, as I've learned, common sense is not a birthright. And look, I'm going to try and be fair about this here, because I probably saw Drake Maye play more games than anybody up there that's covering him now. I watched him play 7 times last year. I have never questioned this kid's talent. I always said it was a matter of timing and where he ended up. He ended up in the worst place possible, maybe a year early. Not from a talent perspective. He's talented enough. It's got nothing to do with his talent. It's got to do with not repeating what just happened with Mac Jones, who was the 15th pick in the first round, had a Pro Bowl year as a rookie and took a team to the playoffs. You know how often that's happened, by the way? And then we watched the so-called greatest coach of all time destroy the kid. By not building around him, no offensive line, no number one receiver, just for starters. When he did spend money, he spent it recklessly. He missed on draft picks, N'Keal Harry over DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, and A.J. Brown. Remember that one, boys and girls? Which is what drove Tom Brady out of town. Tom Brady was done. We're not going to rehash the nightmare that is the GM Bill Belichick. But to double down on that, he hires Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. Would have got any other coach on this planet not named Belichick fired. So that man destroyed the dynasty with his ego. We've been over that ad nauseum, but I don't want to see a repeat of that, because I think Drake Maye can be a great quarterback at some point in his career, but it depends on how he is managed and how he is, how they educate him, how they develop him. And the thing is this, and this has got nothing to do, whatever decision Gerard Mayo makes tomorrow night, and is it even his decision? Because I know he's the head coach. Technically, it should be his decision. But we keep hearing more and more rumblings about how he basically coaches the defense, and the de facto coordinator Van Pelt is the offensive head coach. So maybe it's his decision. I don't know whose decision it is. I was talking to Sean Darcy about this today, one of our loyals up there on the wall, and one of our first. And we were in agreement that, given what we have seen of this, well, you would call it an offensive line. I would liken it to my dog, which is a pug, and that's technically a dog. I call him a sample because to me, he's not a real dog. He's like a stuffed animal with a battery that won't die, and I love him, and he's great with the kids, and my wife adores him. But I grew up with huskies. Those are dogs. This thing doesn't look like a dog. This is like someone stuffed its hand up there, and it's a puppet that won't go to sleep. This offensive line, which was one of the bottom 3 in the league last year, might be worse. I don't know how in the name of God that is possible, given all the money the Patriots had to spend And it doesn't look like, and I went back before we went on the air tonight and looked at their transactions all the way back to January 6th. And I cannot find one, maybe one free agent signing of an offensive lineman. I think there's one. I don't know. I don't know who Liam Fortinell is. He might be the one. That was on June 18th. I went all the way back to January 6th, every single transaction since the start of the new year. And the only offensive linemen that were signed looks like guys we already had for the most part. And if they did bring in anybody, no one knows who the hell they are. So this is what I don't understand. Because if they knew, and I got to believe they did know, that they were drafting a quarterback, okay, with one of their, with either their third pick or their first pick in the second round, they were going to draft a quarterback. The question was when. Knowing the horror that was their offensive line the past 3 years, where did this money go? Why were you not? And again, I'm not saying they didn't try. I don't know, but you can't be telling me that when they had the most cap space, they couldn't go out and get 2 bona fide starting linemen in free agency with all the money they had. But instead, they preferred to re-sign their own core linemen, who by definition sucked. They sucked. They were awful. And look, I love Dante Scarnecchia. He's probably the greatest offensive line coach in the history of the NFL, given what he did with what they gave him. But even every now and then they draft a lineman in the first round. Logan Mankins was one that comes to mind. Nate Solder, Matt Light. I mean, they have done this in the past. If you're not going to do that because you're going to draft the quarterback, okay, fine. But before you even pick whoever this quarterback is going to be, whether it was going to be Jaden Daniels or Drake Maye, and most people thought it was going to be Maye, and it was. But what were you doing with this money where if you weren't going to go get a top flight receiver, because they still have all this money, and they've made this offer for Aiyuk, they didn't get him. He didn't want nothing to do with this team. And I don't blame him because the offense is in shambles, and it starts right at the center. The center is the only legitimate lineman they have. And he's 11 years in the league. So he's getting long in the tooth. Where was the urgency in free agency to get at least 2 starting offensive linemen? I don't care where on the line they are. You had the starting center. Okay, fine. Andrews is legit. I like him. But they drafted 2 linemen. You figured they were going to draft at least 2, and they did. Okay, fine. And maybe they pan out, maybe they don't. I don't know. But where was the urgency when you had the money to go out and find 2 legitimate starting offensive linemen? And again, I'm not saying they didn't look. I don't know if they looked. Because, like everything else, they'll never tell you, especially when they failed at it. So if they did look, they didn't really look very hard. They didn't make much of an offer because they couldn't attract anybody here with a decent payday. So obviously your first objective is left tackle, QB's blind side. That's the highest paid position on the line. Right now, we are, what's today, Wednesday? We are 10 days from the opening against Cincinnati. The left tackle position is not solidified. When I say it's not solidified, I'm not saying they don't have a starter there. I'm saying that who is he? Is he any goddamn good? He doesn't look any good. I mean, I don't know if they didn't play this guy in preseason all just to keep him healthy. I don't know. Maybe that's what happened. I'm praying that's what happened because what I saw the other night against the Commanders, and that was the Commanders' backup defense, I might add, made me want to throw up. Okay, if you were a Pats fan, you are horrified. Jacoby Brissett looked good for the 6 plays that he played, but he got drilled because of a miscommunication by this line against a backup defensive line. Let me say that again. He got almost decapitated, okay? He got depleted, okay? And he has a shoulder injury now. They're claiming he's fine, but who the hell knows? They're not going to tell you everything. But we saw that hit. We saw that guy come free, and we saw this line screw up a routine blocking assignment against a bunch of backups, and he almost killed the kid. And, Mayo sits there and says, well, Maye outplayed him, which he did, but he also played more. Like, I don't think Jacoby Brissett played more than 1 series in any of these preseason games. So what were you trying to gauge? I mean, to me, it would have made sense to play him a quarter if he didn't get hurt. They're saying he could have come back in the game, but they kept him out as a precaution. Okay, fine, no big deal. But there were 2 other games where you could have played him more than 3 or 4 snaps just to get him into a rhythm. How are you supposed to know in 3 or 4 snaps, and if you throw 3 times in 6 downs, and he completes 1 of 3, or what does that tell you really? Now, he's a 9-year veteran. He knows the offense. Maybe he doesn't approve him, but don't turn around and say, well, he's outplayed him when it's more of he's played against a bunch of real estate agents and future car salesmen, because that's the truth. Then the reality is, well, he's just played more and against competition that he won't see when the season kicks off. Because that's the accurate assessment. And yes, he's looked better in the past 10 days. He stepped up in the pocket. He made some great throws. Again, it's not about the kid's talent. It's not about his arm strength. I knew that about him last year. With me, it was all about, okay, what are you doing to build around this kid? Because if you haven't done that, and at least when it comes to the offensive line, is anybody out there who's a Pats fan, a real one, a diehard, a smart one who knows football, confident that this line can keep anyone that lines up on the center upright for more than 4 weeks? And look at their schedule the first 8 weeks of the season. They could be 0-8. They could their defense could play great, and they could be 0-8 because they might lose, in that first 8 weeks, they might lose 3 quarterbacks. That's how bad this offensive line looks right now. Now, to be fair, is some of this fixable? Yeah, a lot of these mistakes were mental, like, lining up, too far in the backfield in the shotgun. They had like 3 penalties where the tackle was lined up too far back off the line of scrimmage that negated what would have been positive plays because they didn't get that right. You can fix that in 10 days of practice. I'm not worried about that. I'm talking about when these guys comes off the edge, you're either not chipping, you're not getting the assignment right, and you're going to one of these first stringers is going to come clean on these quarterbacks, and they could kill them. Okay? And given what we just saw to Brissett the other night, that is not an exaggeration because that was a bunch of backups that did that. So when it comes down to this decision tomorrow, the real question is this. If you believe that you can protect Drake Maye, give him time to go through his reads, you can get him a running game up the middle. The Patriots can actually run the ball up the middle. Their tackles stink. They can't run outside. But they can run up the middle if they spread the defense out, put them in a base nickel. Because it looks like, again, it's too early to tell, but they've got some talent out there on the outside. Now, again, when Tom and I talked about this before, I said it's too early to tell. I don't know what the ceiling is for this receiving core. I do know this. There's some talent there. There is. There's some young talent there. And if they can stay healthy and whoever the quarterback is can get some time, they can do some damage. But that's a big if, given the 5 guys up front. So the question is this. Can this offensive line protect Drake Maye enough? He's going to get hit eventually. It's football. But I'm worried about, if he drops back 20 to 30 times in a game, how many hits is he realistically going to take? And this is week 1. So if you feel you can protect him, name him the starter because he's the 3rd pick in the draft. And the reason I was against him being the 3rd pick in the draft is because I didn't believe for a second they would start him because of this line. Okay? And now look, if Gerard Mayo or Alex Van Pelt, whoever is making this damn decision, thinks that, okay, he's a sitting duck back there against first-string competition, you don't start this kid. You don't start him. You don't. You start Jacoby Brissett, and you have Joe Milton. I would play Milton before him because he is your merchant. He is your asset. He is the 3rd pick in the draft. You protect him at all costs. If you've determined this line, it can't be trusted, he does not touch the field this year unless every other quarterback has been wiped out, and you have no other choice. Now, again, this is why I didn't want us picking a quarterback at 3 because, again, they did not go out in free agency when they had the money and get 2 legitimate starting offensive linemen anywhere, somewhere, somehow. Even if it was a stopgap for a year or 2 till you draft more linemen and develop the 2 you did. Something. They brought back their own, which stunk. And I'm not saying coaching didn't have something to do with that. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I don't know. We'll find out. But this schedule, the first 8 weeks, is murderer's row. Okay, they're going to play some very good defenses. The Jets. Okay, they're going to see the San Francisco 49ers. Look at this. This is ridiculous. This schedule, I thought their schedule last year was supposed to be tougher. The first 8 weeks, they open up at Cincinnati. Then they got Seattle. Then they've got New York, at San Francisco versus Miami. Houston, dangerous team. Jacksonville, New York again. Okay, at Tennessee and Chicago. So if you think about the first 8, Cincinnati, Seattle, New York, 3 defenses. San Francisco, 4, not 5. Miami, Houston, Jacksonville, and New York again. That's tough. That's very tough. I don't know. And again, there are some things they can clean up in the next 10 days. We're going to see how good this coaching staff really is. Because if they can't protect whoever it is back there, I don't care how good the defense is. Defense has to pitch shutouts for them to have a chance. And again, that is the question. Sean and I were talking about this earlier, and this is the question that really everybody's asking. Do you think that this line can protect Drake Maye enough? If you think it can, start him. I don't care, start him. But if you think he might not get out of the first month of the season, or there's a realistic chance that he will be gone, he will be out for the year because of an injury he will sustain, you don't start him. You start Brissett. And Brissett has not played badly at all. Brissett hasn't played enough to get a read on him. I'm going on the fact that he's a 9-year veteran who knows the system, and that's why they didn't play him, because he didn't have to prove anything. They know what he is. He's established. Okay? So, to me, there shouldn't be a quarterback controversy unless you believe this line has evolved enough. And I don't know what on that Washington tape makes you think that's the case. To me, this is a no-brainer. Okay, based on what I have seen. You start Jacoby Brissett if his shoulder's healthy. It's a no-brainer. Okay? But, again, what can they do in 10 days to shore up this line? Or what do they think they can do so that they can give Drake Maye a reasonable chance to succeed back there? Is it even possible? I don't know. Some of those mistakes are fixable. A lot of it's not. There's just not a lot of talent there. And again, they had the free agents, they had the money to go get 2 legit starters and didn't do it. Which is another question that no one seems to be asking enough. So if I'm on the assumption that this line can't protect him, it's Jacoby Brissett. For no other reason than I'm protecting my asset. And again, that's where I think they screwed up. Because if they weren't going to address the offensive line, the third pick should have been Marvin Harrison Jr. Because there's a quarterback in Florida State that's coming out next year. That kid's a ringer. You could have stunk this year and you'd have had Marvin Harrison second going, and you could have got that kid out of Florida State, the one who got hurt. Have you seen this kid? You're going to see him soon enough, okay? And they could have had a crack at him. So, because they're probably going to stink. Probably going to be in the top 5 again. Unless this offensive line suddenly morphs into something that we can't see coming. Because to me, that's the key to the whole season. The defense will be stout. They will keep them in games. Can they put up 21 to 23 points? Can they not turn the ball over? Can they keep the quarterback upright? That's the key to the whole season, right there. So, assuming that nothing drastically has changed since that debacle of a performance by the offensive line against Washington, Jacoby Brissett should be the starter if he's healthy. Because the only other reason, that shoulder's worse than they were saying, and that's the other reason why you start him. Or maybe you start Joe Milton, okay? But that's what I would say about that. The other thing on the table there is that, and again, this is a rumor, and if it were to happen, probably be later. Brandon Aiyuk is still not signed a long-term deal with the 49ers. Because of Drake Maye's recent performance, there are some out there that think, I'm not one of them, but there are some out there that think that if Maye is the game 1 starter and performs well, that might encourage a mid-season or in-season trade. That maybe Aiyuk would see that kid. Okay, he shows promise. I'll take that deal, and maybe he because the Niners would have agreed with this trade for the Patriots. It was Aiyuk who nixed it because he didn't know what this offense was. He didn't know what the quarterback was. He didn't trust. I mean, I get why he did it. Didn't do it. So there's the rumor that if Maye does start and performs well, that maybe this trade could still happen maybe in season because he is not signed with the Niners. He hasn't even practiced even though he's been cleared. So that's a wait and see. I don't personally believe that he would still do that. I don't know. I mean, if the Pats, what if Brissett is a starter and they're 500 at the midway point? I mean, if they're 4-4, they're in it. Maybe then. I don't know. But, I mean, anything's possible. But to me, the offensive line right now is the scariest thing about this team. And they might be worse than last year. I said to Sean today, and I said, how is it possible they're worse last year? Well, the first thing is they spent no money to get any legit starters in free agency. They re-signed their own. So either they brought in a reincarnation of Dante Scarnecchia, the coach that's got this team, this line, this group, this offensive line group, which based on what I saw in preseason, that didn't happen. Okay, or they're not showing anything, and over the next 10 days, they're going to have a game plan that Cincinnati and nobody sees coming. With this line that's going to run first, run up the middle, get them in 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6, 2nd and 3, second where they can actually open up the playbook and then get the defense guessing. Because honestly, that's the only way the quarterback's going to have a chance is if they can run the ball up the middle, and because that's where their strength is in line. Andrews and the 2 guards are pretty good. The tackles stink. I don't even know if the 2 guards are pretty good. I don't know. But I know Andrews is legit. He's a Pro Bowl caliber center. But again, he's entering year 11. He's getting long in the tooth. So we'll see what happens with that. That's going to do it for segment 1. I want to come back to segment 2. The Boston Celtics made a move today that people should be very, 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 very concerned about. And the Indiana Fever had a big win tonight against Connecticut Sun. We'll give you the latest Caitlin Clark update coming up segment 2.